Back to Godhead Prabhupada Variety of Planetary System Back to Godhead Volume 03 p.17, 1960 In the Brahma Samhita 5th chapter there is a description of variegated planetary system even within the material world. And in the Bhagavad Gita, such variegated planetary system in thousands and crores of material universes are considered to be the 1/4 part of the complete creative energy of Godhead. The major 3/4 part of the Lord's creative energy is manifested in the spiritual sky called by the name Paravyoma or the Vaikuntha. The explanation of the Brahma Samhita is now confirmed by the material scientist as much as he, the material scientist, has admitted of the anti-material world. We have discussed about the anti-material world in the last issue of the Back to Godhead, March 20, 1960, and in this article we shall try to give some idea of the variegated planetary system within the material universes. There was a news from Moscow dated 21 February as follows, Indian Express New Delhi dated February 22, 1960. Russia's well-known professor of astronomy Boris Vorotsov-Vilyanino said that there must be an infinite number of planets in the universe inhabited by beings endowed with reasons. This statement of the Russian astronomer is but the latest confirmation of the statement of the Brahma Samhita. In the Brahma Samhita the description is summarized as follows, Yasya Prabha Prabhavata Jagaduta Koti Kota Suvasudati Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmaniska Lama Anata Ashsabutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. According to Brahma Samhita as mentioned above there is not only infinite number of planets as confirmed by the Russian astronomer but there is an infinite number of universes also. And all these infinite number of universes with their infinite number of planets within are floating on and are produced of the Brahma effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of Govinda, Lord Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord who is worshipped by Brahma the presiding deity of the universe where we are residing. The Russian astronomer confirms also that all the planets, which are estimated to be not less than approximately 100 million planets. And in the Brahma Samhita it is said that in each and every one of the infinite number of universes, there are infinite number of variegated planets. The astronomer's view was seconded by Professor Vladimir Alpatov, a biologist. According to him, some of the above-mentioned planets had reached a state of development corresponding to that of Earth. The report adds also as follows, it could be that life similar to that in Earth flourished on such planets. Doctor of Chemistry Nikol Athirov, covering the problem of atmosphere on other planets, pointed out that the organisms of a Martian, for instance, could very well adapt itself to normal existence with a low body temperature. He said that he felt that the gaseous composition of Martian atmosphere was quite suitable to sustain life of beings which have become adapted to it. This adaptability of organism in different varieties of planets is described in the Brahma Samhita as Vibhuti Binam i.e., each and every one of the innumerable planets within a universe is endowed with a particular type of atmosphere and the living beings there are more perfectly advanced in science and psychology on account of better atmosphere of life. Vibhuti means specific power and Binam means variegated. Scientists who are attempting to explore the outer space and trying to reach other planets by mechanical arrangements must know it for certain that organisms adapted to the atmosphere of the Earth cannot exist in the atmospheric influence of other planets. As such the attempt to get into the orbit of the Moon, the Sun or the Mars, as they are anxious to get into these particular planets, will be completely a futile endeavor of man on account of different atmosphere prevailing in those planets which are described in the Brahma Samhita as Vibhuti Binam. Individually however one can attempt to go into any planet he desires but this is only possible by psychological changes in the mind of a particular person. Mind is the nucleus of the material body. The gradual evolutionary process of the material body depends more or less on the psychological changes in the mind. The change of bodily construction of worm into a butterfly and in the modern advancement of medical science to convert a man's body into a woman or vice versa all these depend more or less on the psychological change of the mind. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that at the time of death if anybody concentrates his mind upon the form of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna and thus doing relinquishes one's body such person at once enters into the spiritual existence in the anti-material world. This means that anybody who practices constantly for psychological changes of the mind from matter to the spiritual form of Godhead by performances of prescribed rules in the devotional services can easily attain to the kingdom of God in the anti-material sky and there is no doubt about it. And in the same way if anybody desires to enter into any other planet of the material sky, he can go there just after quitting the present body, i.e., after death, and enter into the atmosphere of the particular planet one desires to enter in. Thus if somebody wants to enter into the Moon planet as they are now attempting or into the Sun planet or into the Mars, one can do so simply by performing statutory acts for that purpose. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this statement in the following words. The thing which a person meditates upon at the time of death, and quits his material body in that state of mind, does at once attain to that particular thing after death. Maharaj Bharat, in spite of his severe penances, thought of his stag at the time of his death, and thus he became a deer after death, but with clear consciousness of his past life. This is very important point. The atmosphere created at the time of death is but an after effect of the actual deeds which one performs during his duration of life. In the Srimad Bhagavad 3.32, the process of entering into the moon planet is mentioned as follows: materialistic-minded men who have no information of the kingdom of God are almost mad after material acquisition of wealth, fame and adoration. Such men are interested in the progressive welfare work of the family unit for self-satisfaction and progressively extending the activities for social or national welfare. Such men do attain to the desired object by material activities in the prescribed mechanical or ritualistic discharge of duties, and are thus inclined to satisfy the Pitras or the bygone forefathers, and so also other controlling gods by performances of sacrifices as presented in the revealed scriptures. Addiction to such acts of sacrifices and ceremonial observances such men do enter into the moon planet after death. When a person is thus promoted to the atmospheric conditions of the moon, he gets the necessary strength to enjoy the drinking of samarasa, a celestial beverage. The moon planet is a place where the demigods like Chandra is the predominating deity. The atmosphere and amenities of life there are far more comfortable and advantageous than those what we have got to utilize here. And reaching there, if a person does not utilize the opportunity to get promotion to other better planets, he is degraded and is made to come up again on this planet or any other similar one like the Earth. And such materialistic persons, even though they attain to the topmost planetary system, do certainly get themselves annihilated at the time of periodical general disappearance of the cosmic manifestation. So far as the planetary system in the spiritual sky is concerned, there are unlimited number of Vakunthas in the Paravyoma, and the ratio is that the manifestation of the Lord's internal potency, that is the spiritual sky, is 3 times greater than that of the material sky made by the external energy. Poor materialists are busy in political adjustment in a place which is most insignificant in the evaluation of God. What to speak of this planet Earth? The whole universe with innumerable planets up and down is compared with a grain of mustard amongst the mustards packed in a bag. Such poor materialist makes plan here to live comfortably and thus waste most valuable energy of human life in a thing which is never to be completed. Instead of wasting time in that plan, making business a plain and simple life with high thinking of spiritual life would have saved the misguided human being from perpetual unrest, which is a gift of matter. Even if a materialist wants to enjoy developed material facilities, he can transfer himself to the other many material planets where he can experience more and more advanced material pleasures. The best plan of life is to prepare oneself for going back definitely to the spiritual sky after leaving this body, but yet if anyone wants to enjoy the largest amount of material facilities, one can transfer himself in the other planets, not by means of playful Sputniks which are simply childish entertainments, but by psychological effects and learning the art of transferring the soul by mystic powers. The yoga system is also materialistic inasmuch as it teaches to control the movements of air within the body. The spiritual spark, soul, is floating on air within the body, and breathing exhalation are the waves of that air containing the soul. Therefore yoga system is a materialistic art of controlling such air, which can be placed by practice of yoga from the stomach to the navel, from the chest to collarbones, from collarbones to the eyeballs, and from the eyeballs to cerebellum. And from the cerebellum the expert yogi can convey his own soul to any planet he desires. The velocity of air or light is taken into consideration by the material scientist, but they have no information of the velocity of matter, namely the mind and intelligence. We have some experience of the velocity of the mind because in a moment we can transfer the mind to lakhs and crores of miles away. Intelligence is still fine matter. Finer than intelligence is the soul, which is not matter at all, but it is spirit or antimatter, and is crores and crores times finer and powerful than intelligence. We can thus make an imagination of the velocity of the soul and how quickly it can travel from one planet to another by its own strength without any help of any sort of finer material vehicle. Animals' civilization of eating, sleeping, fearing and sense gratifying has misled the modernized man, and they have forgotten how powerful a soul he is. As we have already described, that the soul is a spiritual spark which is many times illuminating, dazzling and powerful than the sun, the moon or electricity. Human life is spoiled by not realizing his real identity. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu along with Nityananda appeared to save the man from the type of misleading civilization. How the yogis can travel in all the planets of the universe is also described in the Bhagavatam as follows: when the vital force is thus lifted on the cerebellum, there is every chance of these force being burst out from any one of the holes like eyes, noses, ears, as these are the places which are known as the 7th orbit of the vital force. The yogis therefore can block out these holes by complete suspension of passing air, and carefully the yogi concentrate the vital force in the middle position or in between the eyebrows. At this position the yogi can think of in which of the planets he wants to go after leaving this body. He can decide either to go to the abode of the Krishna and the Vaikuntha, which are transcendental places where nobody is required to come back again in the material world, or at least if he desires not to go directly to the planets of the spiritual sky but wants to have a travel over the higher planets in the universe, he is at liberty to do so in that position. For a perfect yogi who has attained success in the system to leave this material body in perfect consciousness, the process is as easy as an ordinary man in lifetime goes from one place to another. As already discussed, the material body is just a covering of the spirit soul. Mind and intelligence is the undercover, and gross body of earth, water, air, etc. is the overcoating of the soul. As such, any advanced soul who has realized himself by the yogic process or the linking up process from matter to spirit, can leave these shirting and coatings of the soul in perfect order and as he desire. One has complete freedom by the grace of God. The Lord is kind upon us that we can live anywhere, either in the spiritual sky or in the material sky, and in any planet fixed up thereof. Misuse of this freedom makes him fall down in the material world and live in a conditional life full with threefold miseries. To live a miserable life in the material world is a choice of the soul, as it is nicely illustrated by Milton's Paradise Lost poetry, and not of chance, and from the material world also by his own choice he can go back to home, back to Godhead. So in that critical time of placing the vital force in between the two brows, he is to decide where he wants to go. If he is completely reluctant to keep any connection with the material world, he can do so, and within less than a second he can reach the transcendental Vaikuntha and appear there completely in spiritual body just suitable to him in the spiritual atmosphere. He is simply to desire to leave the material world both in finer and grosser forms, and then put on the vital force on the topmost part of the skull and leave this body from the hold of this skull called Brahmana. That is the highest perfection of practicing yoga system. But as he is endowed with the freedom of will, and as such, if he does not wish to get himself completely freed from the material world but enjoy a life of Brahmapada, or to occupy the post of Brahma and to see the place of materially perfect beings called the Siddha Loka, where a living being has full capacity of controlling the gravity, space, time, overlordship, etc., then he has not got to leave the mind and intelligence, finer matter, but can simply give up the grosser matter and thus go up to the highest place of the material universe. The Sputniks, or the so-called man-made planets made of mechanical arrangements, will never be able to carry human being in the interplanetary outer space. Even they cannot go into the so much advertised moon. The reason is repeated again: in the higher planetary system the atmosphere is different from here. Each and every planet has its particular atmosphere, and if one wants to go to any particular planet anywhere within the material universe, one has to get his material shirt and coats made up exactly adaptable to the climatic condition of that particular planet. It is just like this. If a person wants to go from India to Europe, where the climatic condition is different from India, then one has to change his dress accordingly. Similarly, complete change of dress as much as we require to change the body when we want to go up to the transcendental planets of Vaikuntha. The difference is that if we want to go to the highest material planet, we need not change the finer dress of mind, intelligence and ego, but we have to change the gross dress made of earth, water, fire, etc. But when we go to a transcendental planet, we require to change both the finer as well as gross bodies, and we have to reach in the spiritual sky completely in spiritual forms. The change of dress will automatically take place simply by desiring it at the time of death. This desire is possible only if we practice it during the conscious state of life. Such desires, when practiced in relation with material world, are called fruitive actions. When such desires are conducted in relation with the kingdom of God, it is called divine or devotional service, which is discussed also in this issue.